Okay, well, good morning and welcome everyone. First of all, I'd just like to introduce the team quickly. I'm Alex Halferty. This is Hannah Lee, Kumar Shamadri, and Rachel Devosovic. And we were the A.Stucki team. First of all, I'd like to thank all those in attendance for your time and effort in the McKinsey Cup, and extend a special thanks to our academic advisor, Andrew Washburn, as well as our company contacts, Matt Peterson and Robert Berdanier, who were extremely helpful during the course of this project. So first off, who is A.Stucki Company? A.Stucki was founded in 1911 and is in the railcar dynamic control industry, namely roller sidecar bearings, which is this figure in the bottom right. What a roller sidecar bearing does is it prevents the railcar from derailing. So Stucki stuck with this business up until 2007 when they encountered a management buyout when the family ran out of heirs. So during the management buyout, Stucki began expanding quickly. So they went from a $10 million roller sidecar bearing company quickly to a $150 million everything rail car. So all these components under what is actually the box of the rail car is basically whatever Stucki manufactures or refurbishes. So they acquired 10 businesses since 2007 and expanded to 14 locations. And the key tie-in with our project is that because they've expanded so rapidly, this leaves some fertile ground in terms of purchasing, because all their purchasing is still done autonomously. So bottom line, our project realized the opportunity to save $20 million annually. The rationale behind this $20 million figure comes from the scope of our project, which was to save Stucki money in purchasing industrial gases for cutting and welding in their facilities. We were successful in this, and we achieved a 17% direct cost savings through kind of switching methods of purchasing, and also a 10% contract consolidation savings. And when you apply these savings across the board, that's the $20 million figure that we came to. This is kind of a chronology, a project overview of what we did this semester, during the project. The first third of the project, we were in the data collection phase. So we basically got a big box of invoices from Stucki for all their materials purchasing involved with the gases. And we sorted through them and compiled spreadsheets of the applicable data. And at the same time we were doing this, we were researching the best practices in the industry. And we did this by looking to competitors, getting advice from suppliers, and also looking at other comparable companies that do a lot of welding and cutting. In the opportunity identification stage, this is the second part in our project. We were beginning to tie together the opportunities and the best practices in a feasible way, and we found that, yes, we can definitely save on welding and cutting operations directly through different purchasing methods, but we also found some indirect cost savers, such as employee downtime, invoice processing fees, and the like. Finally, at the end of our project, we gave some final recommendations. We gave facility-specific recommendations to change purchasing. We gave a new contract consolidation overview and a way to change their purchasing that way. And we also gave them a methodology which they can apply across all their cost segments. And what this really does is give our clients legs with our project. It gives them the ability to apply what we've done in this pilot scenario, which is a very small portion of their overall costs, and it gives them a way to apply that across all the different cost segments. At this point, I'll hand the mic over to Hannah, and she'll give you a gas consumption overview.
Thank you, Alex. Our first step to reach that $20 million is to identify the 5 facilities we are looking at for our project. These are 2 facilities in Pennsylvania. They are Sharon and Hill. The other 3 facilities are in Missouri, Illinois, and Virginia. These 5 facilities are mainly involved with welding and cutting services. Below are 4 gas suppliers that A.Stucki currently has business with. They are Airgas, Praxair, Segment, and Anchor. Our next step is to analyze the current cost consumption. And From the bar chart, I take Illinois as an example. For Illinois facilities, it involved 6 types of gases. Among those 6 gases, propane is consumed most. And we consolidate all the information from bar chart into that pie chart. From the pie chart, we can clearly see the total cost and the cost for each gas type. And propane accounts for more than half of the total cost. The total annual cost is $201,000. That cost is solely related to the gases cost. It excludes any other materials cost and or indirect material cost related to welding and cutting services. After we know the gas consumption, I'm going to introduce the purchase modes for gases. There are currently 3 modes. The first one is cylinder system, which is currently used by A.Stucki. It is the most expensive one, but it's easy to move. There are 2 other alternatives. One is cylinder pack system. It is similar as cylinder system, except for it can be used in 6 cylinder per pack, 12 cylinder per pack, or 16 cylinders per pack. In this way, it reduces the gases cost. The other alternative is liquid box system. It has more potential spaces for the cost reduction. It is suitable when you spend more than 10 cylinders of purity gases per month or 30 cylinders of mixed gases per month. It solves the problems of the safety issues related to the change-outs of the cylinders. But when you consider this system, you should also consider its installation and infrastructure costs as well. And I will pass it to Kuma. Kuma will talk about opportunities for cost reduction.
Thank you, Hannah. As you have listened to Hannah, she primarily discussed about 3 things. 1, what is the gas consumption at each of the facilities? And second thing, what are the different modes of procuring gases? And third thing, what is the industry best practices? So what I'm going to do is combine all this information and try to see if we can gain efficiencies or reduce costs in each of the plants. And I'm taking the example of one of the plants, and it can be applicable to all the 5 plants that Hannah has showed to you. For example, this is Sharan plant. In that location, currently we are using different gases that I have shown on x-axis, that is propane, oxygen, argon, and several other gases. On the y-axis, we see the number of cylinders that are being consumed per month in this facility. The blue line is the line that is the threshold point that comes from the industry best practices, that the information that we have got from all the suppliers and competitor information. That means whenever our consumption crosses or exceeds the threshold point, it is not optimal to go for the current cylinder system that Stucki is currently using. So if you see the example of propane, our current consumption is 170 cylinders per month, whereas the threshold point where we have to move on to the other systems such as pack system or bulk system is 10 cylinders per month consumption. So it is clear opportunity that we can move on to the other systems. In this case for propane, we recommend to move on to the bulk system. Whereas for oxygen, we are moving on to the pack system. It is not as big as that of propane. So we are recommending to move on to the pack system for oxygen. And similarly, for all the 5 facilities, we have conducted this information consolidated, and we say that this presents the information for all the 5 facilities. What are all the opportunities for us to reduce costs by moving on to the other systems? And what are all the gases that we are using, and what is the current practice, and what is the recommended practice. This is the consolidated information. So by moving on to these things, what are all the gains that we are going to get? This is actually, I'm discussing about the primarily for the gases, industrial gases, but this can be applicable to all the other materials that are purchased by A.Stucki, and which can lead to realize about $20 million figure that we are discussing about. Those are First one, direct cost saving, that is consolidation of contract. That means bringing all the suppliers together and taking taking from one of the suppliers. And second thing is realization of cost by moving on to the pack or bulk system in gases. And there are other indirect cost benefits such as invoice processing and employee downtime and delivery fees associated with these things. We will go into details of these things. One is consolidation of contract. As Hannah has discussed, we have 5 facilities where we are using industrial gases, and there are 4 suppliers supplying for the 5 facilities. We discussed with the 2 of the suppliers, major suppliers, and it is clear that we can gain advantage by consolidating the contract with one of the suppliers because we are giving the entire volume to the one supplier. And at least a minimum of 10% savings is possible in this case by consolidating of the contract. The second thing is the cost reduction by moving on to the pack or the bulk system that we have shown. As we discussed, it is better to move on to the pack system and bulk system for several of the sites. We see, okay, let me explain for the sake of, for argon as an example. If you see, currently we are purchasing argon in cylinders, which is costing us $0.07 per cubic meter. Whereas if you can move on to the bulk system, it is costing about 0.04. That means almost half of the cost is reduced directly. Even in some of the cases, we are asking the client to move on to the pack system, where we can even then we can realize at least 10 to 15% of the cost by moving on to the pack system, and at the same time we can gain efficiencies there. However, there is an infrastructural cost if you are moving on to the bulk system, where we have recommended for 2 of the sites to move on to the bulk system. That is costing monthly $660. That is because we have to set up the bulk system and have to have the pack piping. All these things are costing around $660 per month over a period of 5 years. So these are the cost savings by consolidation, and secondly by moving on to the pack and bulk system. There are other cost savings. Those are indirect cost savings. Those will be discussed by Rachel.
Thank you, Kumar. So our first indirect cost is the cost associated with processing an invoice. So currently we are processing invoices 300 times annually. By implementing the recommendations which Kumar suggested, we can decrease the number of invoices we're processing by 180. So we're now only processing 120 invoices annually. This is due to consolidating the contract and also due to purchasing in higher volumes. Now, there are a variety of factors you need to take into consideration when determining how much it costs to process an invoice. These 6 factors are located here on this slide. The first is errors. Errors in regards to duplicate invoicing, also due to sending invoices to the wrong location. There's also bank charges, such as checks, for example. There's also loss of discounts. So some of the suppliers may offer us a discount if we pay for our gases within a certain period of time. If we don't pay in that period, we can lose out on that opportunity. The fourth is mailing charges. So there's costs for mailing, such as stamps and envelopes. And you also need to take into consideration the time that it takes for the accounts payable employees to process these invoices. And it's not just the accounts payable employees, but it's other employees in the organization who are also going to have their hands on processing these invoices. Now, as you can see, we have a range for this cost of $50 to $80. Now, this was derived in a Six Sigma project of a comparable company in the same industry as A.Stucki company. Now, because we did not do this specific analysis for A.Stucki, we have decided to use the lower end of this range of $50 for the invoice processing cost. If we take that $50 and multiply that by the reduction in 180 invoices, we can realize a potential annual savings of $9,000. The second indirect cost is employee downtime. Employee downtime is the time and cost associated with employees switching out cylinders. So we're only going to realize this cost savings when we switch to a bulk system because we're going to eliminate the use of cylinders. So here we're talking about only the Hill and the Sharon locations where we have recommended that a propane bulk system be implemented based upon their consumption levels. So through looking into the invoices, we determined that at both these locations, these facilities are using 2,700 propane cylinders annually. So that's 2,700 cylinder changeouts. Through our industry research, by going to the facilities, talking to the suppliers, as well as industry standards, we determined that it takes approximately 25 minutes for an employee to change out a cylinder. Now, to figure out the cost associated with that, we took an average welder's salary of $35,000. This is roughly $17 an hour and approximately $7.50 per 25-minute cylinder changeout. So taking that $7.50 figure and multiplying that by the 2,700 annual cylinders, we can realize potential downtime savings annually of $20,500. The last indirect cost savings we identified was delivery fees. Now, anytime these suppliers deliver an industrial gas to a facility, there's a $20 delivery fee associated with that invoice. So by reducing our invoices by $180, we can realize delivery fee savings of $3,600 annually. Now, looking at this from a broad perspective, we can see that taking into account both direct and indirect costs, we can realize the potential savings of roughly $86,000 annually in the industrial gas cost segment alone. Now, if you look at the pie chart in the top right, you can see that roughly 63% of these savings are coming from our direct costs. Now, the bar chart below is depicting the cost opportunities at each of the 5 facilities. Now, the blue part of the bar represents the direct cost savings, and the orange portion of the bar represents the indirect cost savings. Now, you can see from this chart that the Sharon, as well as the Hill location, are the 2 facilities with the greatest opportunity for cost savings. Now, this slide depicts the total amount of potential cost savings which we can realize across all material and miscellaneous cost segments of the business. Now, I'm going to start with the pie chart on the top. We have $72,800,000 in material and miscellaneous costs. Now, by first just looking at our test or pilot segment, we looked into the industrial gas cost segment. Now, this segment only accounts for 1/3 of 1% of that total $72,800,000 mark. Now, we were able to realize that there is a potential for savings of 27% in this cost segment. 10% of those cost savings are coming from the contract consolidation. We can also reduce our costs by an additional 17% by changing to a pack or a bulk system. Now, by implementing the methodology which we use to derive these cost savings in our test segment to all of the other material and miscellaneous cost segments of the business, we can realize potential annual cost savings of $20 million. Now, that's a 27% reduction in total costs. Again, 10% of those cost savings are coming from contract consolidation. An additional 17% of those cost savings are coming from other related direct costs. Now, this $20 million figure is a realistic projection because we have seen that in other small cost segments of the business that we have realized similar cost reduction numbers and percentages as we did in our test case. In addition, we have been acquiring 10 companies over the last few years. So there are all of these companies with different purchasing and procurement operations. By consolidating all of these operations, we have a huge opportunity for economies of scale. Lastly, I want to bring to your attention that in this $20 figure, we did not even include the indirect cost savings, which we realized in our test case. So it's important to know that there will be additional indirect cost savings that will be associated with each of these individual cost segments that is not even included in our $20 million figure. Now, in conclusion, again, we identified the industrial gas cost segment, and we realized a reduction in costs of 27%, which is equivalent to $54,000. We were also able to realize in the industrial gas cost segment indirect costs of $32,000. By applying this methodology across all of the other material and miscellaneous cost segments of the business, there is the potential to realize the 27% in direct cost savings. This is equivalent to the total annual direct cost savings of $20 million annually. Now, that is the end of our presentation. So we would like to thank you all for your time and attention, and we would like to welcome any questions that you may have at this time.
you want to go first this time?
Sure. We'll mix it up a little bit. So, yeah, I think this was an interesting project. There's always a lot of challenges when you're trying to identify organizationally where all cost savings can be. I like the use of Six Sigma process. From an overview perspective, I think that the slides are good. I like the layout of the data. I was having a hard time from the beginning kind of getting the initial picture of what the potential would be before you dove into the specific test or the pilot area. And I think it came back around where you showed the bigger picture later, so maybe just some movement of that up to show what the view was and why you selected this area as kind of the test pilot. The other piece that wasn't clear in how you handed off the explanation to me was how much was actually realized as part of the test case and implemented versus how much was potential. I think you clarified some of that at the end of the $20 million is ID'd and potential, but I don't know if you would care to answer that, if some was actually recognized already.
To address your first point, the task we were given from our client was specifically in the industrial gas segment, so that's how we chose it.
Okay.
And moving beyond that, what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry. I lost it.
So how much actually was realized of the savings versus how much was ID'd and the methodology to apply going forward?
Okay. As of now, Stucki has not actually implemented our recommendation, but the potential is there.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you. I think your slides, I agree, were easy to follow, and along with you guys presented very well. So congratulations on that. My statement too is really more about kind of what happens next. So what I'm not clear on is there are going to be costs for change, right? Change doesn't just come with savings. Change comes with costs to implement them. And so I'm wondering if you did or maybe didn't do and should have done is think about the cost to implement the change, whatever those might be. There would be training costs. There might be, human resource costs that are different in terms of needing to perhaps let people go if you're going to create more efficiencies, those types of things. And at the same time, what's the implementation plan for this? What are the next steps? What should A.J. Stucki go do? You've identified the dollars, but what you haven't said is what the net cost of that would be. In other words, what's going to cost them to do it, and then how should they go do it? Not that you have to go do it in the time that you're there, but at least for me, what's missing at the end is that wrap-up, that bring it all around that says, here's what it is, here's what we would recommend you go do next to make this work for you. And it may be that they do it across all 5 plants at one time. It may be start in one place and see how it goes and then improve upon it for each other. It might be attack direct and then indirect. Whatever would be the right next steps. But that, to me, was one thing I would ask you to consider in terms of how to add value for the client in terms of what to do with the work that you've already done.
Yeah. I agree. Very good presentation. I might follow up a little bit on what the point that Amy made, which is, what you're asking the client to do is a pretty big piece of change here. So first of all, maybe I'll just ask a high-level question. You presented this to the leadership at A.Stucki? So, yeah, I mean, you tell them you've got $20 million in $72 million if you want to go after it. I mean, that's big, big dollars. How did they receive it?
Yeah, actually, to answer the question of both of you, there is one methodology that we have incorporated because of the time that, it is 1.5 hour presentation that we have given to the Stucki team, and we have to condense it to 20 minutes here. And in that presentation, we have also included the information about what is the constraint that we may have in terms of culture issues, and also when we are moving on to the one supplier, which supplier would be the right supplier, and also this consolidated information of, what are the recommendations. You can straight away go and negotiate with this sheet of paper in terms of price and also contract, and also handle the culture issues. So we have shown that entire framework is there, but that is missing, as you said. It is very much right. And Stucki team is very much impressed, and they have given opportunity for another team for the next year, next fall, to come and do the similar exercises with them, and one internship as well.
Yeah, that's great. So why do you think, in a sentence or two, why do you think they haven't implemented the $54,000 here yet? This seems like it's pretty discreet. It didn't sound like you're asking them to go to a new supplier. It's a supplier they currently do business with.
Yeah.
What's the holdup here? Because I think it's probably indicative of a $20 million holdup.
I think one of the holdups is the fact that there's been so much growth and there's been so much acquisition. So right now we have all of these other companies with their own contracts with these suppliers, with their own operations. So I think that, once we're at that level where we've acquired the companies that we want to, then we can look into really consolidating everything so that we can do it all at once. But there's also contractual limitations. Most of these gas supplier contracts have phrases and clauses in them that state that you need a 12-month termination notice. So this does kind of put a little bit of a kink in, trying to just start jumping right now and, start to realize these direct cost savings. Because if we want to consolidate a contract, we're at least going to be, at a year's point that we could even start doing this, because we do need to provide notification to all of these suppliers that, we're going to consolidate.
Just one last point, too, a little bit of a snarky point. So, the most compelling analysis there to me was that consumption threshold analysis. Very compelling. Here's the snarky point. Why do you believe you should stay with a current supplier who doesn't themselves bring this to you? This is their business, right? If they're charging these delivery fees and charging you the high volume price for or the low volume price for something you're buying in high volume, I would expect a partner supplier to come to me and say, hey, we can save you some money. So why do you think you should stick with one of these guys and not go and look outside the industry for somebody else, another new supplier?
Well, I think the reason or the rationale behind Airgas specifically is that it's not in their best interests regionally to consolidate, because regionally the way it works is that the regional office, the head of that office is going to get a bonus for this, and if we consolidate, essentially one guy is going to get a bonus instead of all five. So that's the reason there.
It's a little bit of a prisoner's dilemma, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, none of them get a bonus. Great, thank you. A very good presentation.